Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm giving the lecture on the next topic on molecular biology, which comprises that how a double helical structure of DNA is being formed. In the previous lecture, we have discussed how a complete nucleotide is formed, which is having the presence of two different bonds, that is the glycosidic bond first and the second is the ester bond or the ester linkage. Now, how these nucleotides are combined together in order to give rise a polynucleotide chain which will finally give rise to a complete deoxyribonucleic acid, that is DNA. Okay, so for this what we have to do, we have to first form a different bond which is present between two different nucleotides, right? And the bond which is present between the two nucleotides or combining a nucleotide, one nucleotide with the another is named as the phosphodiester bond, that is PDB, phosphodiester bond. You can simply understand from its name, that is it comprises a diester linkage which is present between the phosphate group. So every time we have, whenever we have studied the structure of the DNA which is double helical in nature, we know that the two complete strands which are anti-parallel in nature because of their polarity from the 3' hydroxyl group from the sugar and the 5' phosphate group which is attached at the 5th carbon of the sugar molecule. So this polarity comes from these two different groups, right? Now these two strands are comprised of this complete phosphate and sugar backbone, or you can simply say that the strand or the template strand, or you can say the pillars of the DNA helical structure having the strands in form of a sugar phosphate backbone. So where are the nitrogenous bases exist in the double helical structure? These nitrogenous bases are present inside or the inner region of the two strands, which are stabilized by the presence of the hydrogen bonds, right? So how these hydrogen bonds are formed, we will discuss in the later lecture. First, let's discuss how this phosphodiester linkage or the bond is formed between the two nucleotides. So let me draw the first one. This is the first carbon position on which a nitrogenous base, I am representing it by the symbol B, that is the nitrogenous base, okay, is bonded with the help of a glycosidic linkage to the first carbon position. At the second carbon position, two atoms of hydrogen are present. At the 3' position, there is a free valency because of the presence of a hydroxyl group, okay. This is the fourth carbon on which CH2OH group is present from where we get the another valency. So here the next phosphate group will be attached, right? So I can name it as a 5th carbon or the 5'. Say if I add a phosphate group over here in this manner simply, okay. So where I can add the next nucleotide, obviously there is only the 3' hydroxyl group will provide the free valency or the free position where we can add the next nucleotide to extend or elaborate the chain. Clear? So here I am adding the next nucleotide, that is the phosphate, in this manner, and it will give rise to the next nucleotide again in the same manner. This is the 3' OH, right? First carbon, second, third, fourth, and this is the 5th one. So here you can see that this particular chain is elongating from a 5th carbon position and ending into a 3' hydroxyl group. If I just reverse this orientation, then I will get a chain extending from 3' position to a 5' position, right? So in this manner, the two anti-parallel chains of a DNA double helical structures are being formed. I have already drawn the structure of how a complete DNA is being formed. Here the symbol, as I said, it is showing the nitrogenous base. Say if it is adenine, then it will come and bind to the thymine only. If it is cytosine or guanine, then it will come and bind to the cytosine. If it is guanine, it will bind to the cytosine. And if it is cytosine, then it will come and bind to the guanine, right? So the first chain you can say see on the left side of this section is starting from the 5' position and is ending at the 3' position, whereas the orientation of this particular chain at the right side is starting from the 3' position of the hydroxyl group in this deoxyribose sugar and is ending to the 5' position of the position of the sugar molecule. Clear? So these types of bonds are here present. This is a glycosidic bond, this will form a ester bond, and this is the complete phosphodiester linkage. ठीक है, इसको हम phosphodiester linkage बोलते हैं. And these dotted lines or the dashed lines you can observe is the hydrogen bond. These hydrogen bonds are formed between the purines and the pyrimidines, right? So what is a hydrogen bond? First of all, hydrogen bond is a weak bond which is formed between the hydrogen atom and a comparatively electronegative atom, which can be either the oxygen or nitrogen or some other kind of electronegative atoms, right? So इसका सबसे कॉमन एग्जाम्पल है वाटर मॉलिक्यूल का स्ट्रक्चर, जिसके अंदर वीक हाइड्रोजन बॉन्ड्स बनते हैं, लाइक इन दिस मैनर. This particular one, the molecule of hydrogen, water is bonded to the another molecule of water in this manner. So these bonds, this and this bond is a covalent bond that is formed by the sharing of the electrons, same as this, but this bond, that is the dotted line, is a hydrogen bond. Why it is known as a hydrogen bond? Because it is formed between oxygen, which is highly electronegative atom, and the hydrogen atom, which is formed between two different molecules of water. Clear? So here also, that is in the case of DNA, these hydrogen bonds are formed between the purines and the pyrimidines, that is adenine, guanine and thymine and cytosine. So when the adenine molecule come and binds in the vicinity of the next pyrimidine or the complementary pyrimidine, that is the thymine only, it forms two hydrogen bonds in number. That is, whenever you find the 80 base pair in a DNA structure, then there is the presence of two hydrogen bonds, right? But when we talk about the bonding of hydrogen bonds between the guanine and cytosine, then there occurs the presence of three hydrogen bonds between the guanine and the cytosine and the vice versa. Clear? So the complementarity is between adenine and thymine always, and guanine and cytosine always. You can never find adenine to be paired with cytosine or thymine to be paired with guanine. It can never happen. Clear? So always and always adenine will pair with thymine and guanine will pair with the cytosine, vice versa. Now, according to this complementary base pairing, a rule was given by Chargaff which is known as Chargaff's rule. It was given by the scientist E. Chargaff, which says or which states that whenever a purine pair with a pyrimidine, right, whenever a purine pairs with a pyrimidine, then there is a equal amount of both these two nitrogenous bases in the DNA double helical structure. That is, if you find 4 adenine, then there should be or there must be the presence of 4 thymine in the structure. If there is the presence of 10 cytosine, which will be hydrogen bonded to the 10 guanine only. It is not like that if I reduce the number of adenine to 3 and the thymine to 5, then the DNA will have a more stabilized structure. It is not like that. So simply the rule is that there should be equal proportion of both the purines and the pyrimidines so that a completely stable structure of the DNA can be formed, right? So here it can be also written as A plus T is equals to G plus C, or simply you can write it as A plus T upon G plus C is equals to 1. So always and always remember this, that the number of purine will always be equivalent to the number of pyrimidines in the DNA double helical structure. So this was the rule given by Chargaff. Now, as I mentioned that there is the presence of 2 hydrogen bonds between the adenine and thymine and 3 hydrogen bonds between the cytosine and the guanine. So if I talk about the energy to break down these 2 different types of bonds, then how much amount of energy will be required? Okay, getting my point? I'm just asking that if I want to break a GC rich DNA strand and also I want to break a AT rich strand, then the amount of energy required to break these hydrogen bonds will be more in amount for the GC rich DNA. Why it is so? It is because of the presence of 3 hydrogen bonds, right? जितने ज़्यादा bonds होंगे हमें उन्हें break करने के लिए उतनी ही ज़्यादा amount of energy की requirement होगी, right? So always remember that if a GC rich DNA is present, then higher amount of energy will be required in comparison to a AT rich DNA to be broken down. So that's all about my today's lecture. Hope you will find it useful. Thank you very much.